Anyway, to make it up to you, I will do some fun stuff occasionally, like doing cooking videos and drawing videos. Anyway, on to the video.
It's nothing.
And they'd be looking at us like this, like through slits of his eyes. At this point, I was insisting to the psychiatrist that it couldn't be only OCD. So then the psychiatrist said that perhaps what we're looking at is Tourette's.
Tourette's syndrome is a neurological disorder characterized by involuntary physical and verbal tics. The disease, which is lifelong once it sets in, first strikes patients in childhood or adolescence.
If you haven't figured out
He
what the
said that
mystery
we would have
diagnosis
to add a different medication. I went online, I reviewed all the behaviors that the literature said were consistent with a diagnosis of Tourette's, and it seemed that Sammy was, in fact, doing pretty much everything that they described.
But as spring turns into summer, Sammy's disturbing behaviors take over his life completely.
He wouldn't hold a conversation. He wouldn't sleep. He wouldn't eat. He stopped walking entirely. All he did was hop. He had complex motor tics where he would hold his ears and grunt and jump and gasp for breath all at the
For some
same
reason, I
time.
don't think psychological.
It was the most horrible thing that I could imagine. I had completely lost my child.
Despite her mounting anguish, Beth continues trying to communicate with Sammy. But nothing could have prepared her for the wrenching moment that finally brings everything to a head.
Sammy came downstairs. He wouldn't talk to me. He just handed me this note that I unfolded, and he had written the word help in all capital letters.
I didn't think anyone would be able to help me, but I wrote help anyway. It was the only thing I could do.
I called my mother. I was sobbing. I said, I'm going to have to find him a placement where he can live because I cannot help him. We hung up the phone. Within 2 minutes, the phone rang again. My mom said, you need to talk to this woman who works with me. I think she can help you. As a result of that conversation, I took Sammy to see Dr. Catherine Nicolaitis in New Jersey.
I saw Sammy in August of 2003. I got a complete history from Beth. His symptoms were at a crisis level.
Most significantly, Dr. Nicolaitis is intrigued by one clear fact of his case. Sammy hasn't responded to any of the medications he's been taking.
Exactly.
She tried to give him a physical exam, but he really wasn't able to tolerate.
I think it's PANDAS. And yes, you heard it correct. Pandas. I shortened the name of it because it is long. And some you just have to.
To a specific bacteria, Streptococcus. And once we had the elevated blood results, that confirmed for us the diagnosis of PANDAS.
PANDAS, or Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Disorder associated with strep, is a rare autoimmune disorder in which antibodies attack the brain. In a healthy child, when Streptococcus bacteria infect the body, the immune system produces antibodies that target and destroy the strep. But in
Like
children like Sammy,
arthritis, it
for some
attacks the
unknown
brain.
reason, the antibodies brutally assault the brain, causing
not
OCD
saying
and Tourette's-like
hip
symptoms.
psoriatic arthritis attacks the
We
brain. I'm
don't know
saying,
why
like psoriatic
the antibodies
arthritis
do this.
attacks the joints.
the antibodies think that it's attacking the strep, but it's actually attacking neurons in the brain, which are responsible for motor movement. The manifestations are tic-like manifestations and obsessive-compulsive symptoms.
Sammy never had a sore throat. Some people are asymptomatic for strep.
Amazingly,
Exactly.
the irrational fears, the unnatural behaviors, and even the outlandish visions were all the direct result of one simple thing: strep antibodies wreaking havoc on his brain. and it's now clear why the medicine he was taking had no effect.
Serotonin
That's
reuptake
what happened to
inhibitors
me with the psoriatic
are used to
arthritis.
treat obsessive compulsive
I
symptoms,
ended up
not
having
strep.
strep throat.
Any impact they might have
And
had was
COVID
counteracted by the
psoriatic
strep
arthritis.
antibodies that were continually bombarding his brain. In fact, if Sammy hadn't been diagnosed when he was, his bizarre behaviors would have continued to multiply and possibly caused irreversible damage.
There is a sentiment that if
No, I
you
think
do
it'd
not
be worse. I think you'd
interfere
pass.
early enough that there can be excessive damage to the brain.
The scariest thing is that I could have totally lost my son to something as simple as a strep infection.
The good news is that Pandas is treatable. While drugs target the
Good.
underlying strep, therapy can help Sammy unlearn his compulsive behaviors.
We introduced a mood stabilizer as well as antibiotic therapy so that you are not only aiming your treatment at strep, but that you are also using traditional treatments that address obsessive compulsive behavior or tics.
But unfortunately,
is
Dr. Nicolaitis can't give Beth any guarantees
I'll
about
do
whether
2
Sammy
cases.
will ever be his old self again.
Sammy had the worst case of obsessive compulsive symptoms I had ever seen. There's no way to predict whether he would be able to return to school.
I did not think I was going to get better. I thought I was going to have those behaviors for life.
Beth Maloney has just learned that her son Sammy has Pandas, an extremely rare disease that attacks the brain. For over a year, it's made his life a living nightmare, ruled by bizarre obsessions. Now, the 13-year-old is on antibiotics that should help rein in his strange behavior, but he may never fully recover.
I was worried about whether there might have been permanent brain damage. I wanted to finally have Sammy back.
The next several days are almost unbearable as Beth waits to see some sign of improvement.
I began to notice differences immediately.
When I first started to not do behaviors, it was kind of a wonderful feeling.
At the time, and as aggressively as we treated Sammy, we were able to halt this process so that there was not significant damage.
Gradually, over the winter, Sammy's behaviors disappear
I'll leave this case
altogether.
here.